Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the podcast. How you guys doing? I'm in a good mood today. Why am I in a good mood? Well, to kind of illustrate that, I'm going to kind of go into a long rant, as I normally do. I am a creature of habit. If you have not figured that out, I'm a person that likes a consistent routine. Because of that allows me to do a handful of things, one of which is consistency in my goals. If I have workout, fitness goals, if I have project goals, if I have whatever, it's far easier to achieve goals when you know or can foresee your schedule in the future. That's why I'm a creature of habit. That and for other reasons that we can talk about another time. But right now my work duties have changed quite a bit, which means I'm working really weird hours. I go to work on my work days, I come home, I work out. Some of you that follow me on my Instagram at LifeGeneralist, link below, will know that, or if you're keeping track, I suppose, will know that my workouts have been slightly inconsistent. And some of that is just plainly because it's just the work schedule is crazy. So with that said, that has affected the podcast. And some of you that listen to the earlier episodes know that for me to do what I want to do with this podcast requires me to have a lot of variables in the right position. How about that? And in order to do that, consistency is always my best choice. What I mean by that is I've alluded to this in the past, in previous podcasts, how I like having a consistent time when I do this. I like being in a right type of mindset. I like being in a position where I'm just kind of a few hours out of bed. My brain is working on a very specific way. It's a way in which it's very fluid in the way it's putting out thoughts, slight bit of introspection there, a slight bit of philosophical kind of methodology. So my brain works in specific ways, and I can't just achieve what I'm trying to do in a single shot any given time of the day, right? After a hard day of work and after a hard day of training, try doing something like this. Like your mind is not focused on that. Your mind's focused on other things. Your body is switching its energy to, recovery, or your muscle recovery, or cardiovascular recovery, or maybe your brain's just exhausted. You used a lot of your freaking energy for a day based on the calories you ate. Maybe you took on too much caffeine and your brain's just way too jittery. So just a lot of variables. And for me, it's optimal to do this earlier morning, right before as the coffee's kind of kicking in, when I could take a deep breath. Because for those of you, well, actually nobody's going to know this, so I'll say it now because I'm the one that edits this podcast. This podcast for me is done in a one shot. There is no multiple takes. There is no splitting of multiple podcasts and making one. I like to do this in a one shot where I can minimize the amount of editing time I need to do. Like, if you once again follow me on social media, LifeGeneralist, link below, you will know that I have a lot of things that I'm balancing at once. Whether it's my commitments in my home life, whether it's my commitments with my projects, whether it's my work commitments, whether it's my fitness endeavors, whether it's balancing that and a sufficient amount of rest and my diet and all this other stuff. I'm always juggling a lot. And in a way, I kind of enjoy that. But with that being said, when you're juggling so much, I don't have the amount of time to spend a tremendous amount editing this podcast. So oftentimes, this is like a one-time rant. There is no multiple takes. There is no major editing. This podcast is virtually raw, except for maybe editing the levels so that it's easier on the ears, and maybe removing long pauses where I'm really stopping at a point and really thinking my thought after I said it. Usually after, never before. And so my editing is relatively easy. And once again, keep in mind, for those of you that aren't content creators, when you're creating something like this, YouTube is far worse, by the way. That's another reason why I stopped doing video YouTube videos, because I do edit the podcast and upload it there, if you didn't know. Anyways, one of the reasons I stopped doing YouTube is because it's an exponential increase in the editing time. So, some of you are like, why are you telling us all this? Why does this matter? And why are you talking about this during an episode? Well, let me tell you why. Today, after one of my crazy work weeks, I didn't have anything major on my quote-unquote to-do list. Last week, we talked about my to-do list, and we talked about my notebooks these little pocket notebooks that I use for all of my tracking of my to-do list, right? In conjunction a little bit with my calendar, but still. I usually have a list of things to do, and going into the weekend, throughout the week, I add things to the list, but going into the weekend, I like to review what my list is, right? Because I'm a productive person. At least I like to think so. I enjoy completing a very large amount of tasks and checking things off of my list, right? So ultimately, going into this weekend, I didn't have a lot on my to-do list, and I didn't have a tremendous things I needed to get done. So this morning, I woke up like, we normally do on a weekend. And because I didn't really have much to do, I just kind of sat in bed for a while, which I haven't done in God knows how much time. I haven't done that in a very long time. I sat in bed, and you know that thing you used to do, or maybe you do now, who knows, where you sit in bed and you just lay there. You don't really get up. There's no alarm getting you up. There's nothing pushing you towards doing anything. You don't have a timeline or an appointment to go to. You just lay there. And then after a little bit of time, after realizing you're not going to go back to sleep, you grab your phone maybe. You start looking, and I delete all my spam emails. Like people trying to have me go to their site and buy something. Delete all those emails, and then you end up checking social media, or maybe you check your calendar to see what you're doing. And then from there, I just kind of lackadaisically woke up, went into the kitchen and made breakfast. But it was quiet. It was a quiet morning. I didn't have anything going on. I didn't have any crazy things going on. It was actually quite a nice day because it rained today, by the way. So it was just a quiet, easygoing morning. And that's very rare. I don't get that a lot. I'd imagine neither do you, right? Especially if you have kids, you don't get that a lot. You've got things to do. So it was a nice, easy morning. So at this point, you're probably thinking why are we talking about this? And what is this point to today's podcast? This was a nice, quote unquote, other side of the coin for my work week. My work weeks lately have been very crazy, anywhere from 8 to 12-hour days, multiple days a week, right? So because I've had this crazy weekend involving a lot of work, crazy work week involving a lot of just crazy up and down, running around, doing crazy stuff, going into a weekend where I didn't have anything really major tasks to do, and I just kind of sat and chilled and had a slow, easy morning. I never do this, by the way. I even went to the backyard and I sat outside with the cloudy, rainy kind of day. It was super cool, which it hasn't been cool here for God knows how long. And I just sat there and kind of had a little bit of coffee, just relaxed, watched this nice tree I have in the backyard. I went through my social media. It was just a relaxing morning. And so we have to often remind ourselves. So the point of the podcast is two things. I want to often remind people of this, because even when you get into task, you forget this. You need to enjoy the different opposites of each other. There is a beauty in being able to accomplish a lot, get a lot of things done, but at times you need to step away from the box that you're likely living in and take a breath and enjoy it. The point I'm trying to tell you is essentially, in order to truly sometimes enjoy the peaceful mornings, you've got to go through some chaotic times. Think about that for a second. Sometimes, as a kid, for example, this is a better example. Remember when you were a young kid or boy or girl, and you felt like you had so much time on your hands that you were bored. I remember that as a kid. I remember that feeling of I'm bored, I have nothing to do. And the days felt incredibly long. It felt like you just were bored. to a certain point, you almost started causing problems for your parents, likely, right? I don't remember having days like that in my recent life. Because those days are probably gone for us as adults, if you're an adult. And so now because things are so hectic, we want those back. That's where a lot of this nostalgia is coming from nowadays. And so what I'm trying to say is that you can't have the yin without the yang. And and a lot of times those things, those polar opposites, help you enjoy one another. If you have too many peaceful days, you get anxious and you start causing problems, or you start getting bored, and boredom is sometimes a bigger problem than not. So sometimes you got to enjoy the hecticness, the chaos of work, the chaos of your life sometimes. You got to enjoy the sadness almost as much, or if you can, as much as you enjoy the joy. That's such a weird statement. Because just like I sometimes relish in the chaos of going to one task to the other and getting things done and checking things off of my list and being incredibly productive, it is only because I have that for so long that these moments where I can have peace and quiet, when I can have a moment to let my brain ramp up in the morning, to have a peaceful morning where I can have breakfast, only when I have those things, only when I have chaos can I enjoy the relaxing mornings. And so next time that you find yourself in a chaotic place, next time you find yourself in a position where you're stressed out, you can't take the stress, and you're just anxious and pissed off because of what's going on in life with you, take a second, take a deep breath, take a step out of the box, and remind yourself that, yes, this kind of sucks, right? This can apply to anything, sadness. It can apply to stress, anxiety. This kind of sucks. It's momentary. But also realize that you're likely due for something of the polar opposite in the near future. And enjoy what you have now, and realize that the other side is coming soon. And you get to enjoy that as well. You can sometimes have the yin without the yang. That's probably most times in life. That's kind of my little quick tip, little gift I was given this morning. And I'll leave you with one additional thing. So you should likely think about the thing I just told you. But I'll give you one more thing. One more thing to think about. We're living in a weird time. Probably a time that has exacerbated the idea of what you should accomplish and do with your life, right? Everybody has goals. Everybody has these incredibly lofty goals of success, fame, wealth, status, power. Everybody has incredibly lofty goals. Some of this is because of our societal brainwashing of you should achieve this, you should achieve that, you should be this. This is how we define success. This is how we define wealth. This is how we define a good person. This is how we define a bad person, right? A lot of that stuff is societal caveats, societal pressures that are instilled in you without you necessarily knowing that. It's instilled in you via social media, via movies, via just societal pressures alone, right? Because of that, everybody is always reaching for the next thing, the next goal, the next achievement, the next business idea, the next. And while I can appreciate the hustle, probably far more than I can describe. While I can appreciate the hustle, I can appreciate your need to want more and to push for more, because in many respects, if you have the ability to do so, I've talked about it a million times, you should. But also, keep in mind that in doing so, you are introducing a certain level of dissatisfaction. What do I mean by that? Because not everybody is going to get to be the highest caliber of celebrity. Not everybody's going to get to be the most wealthy person in the world. Not everybody's going to achieve even a great level of wealth. Not everybody's going to get to be this or that. The thing that you want to achieve in life, there can only be so many of them, because when there's too many of them, then the weight shifts and there's a new level of the new, for lack of a better phrase. So realize that there is inherently a weird caveat that comes with achieving goals, where even if you achieve them, you're always going to want more. You're always not going to be as satisfied as you think you are. There's another reason why incredibly wealthy and successful businessmen or women achieve their goals and they just don't quit and live a joyous life. They go for the next thing. And that is a very distant cousin to a person who is a troubled gambler. It's a very, very distant cousin, but it's a very similar family member, right? It's a person that, yeah, you want some money, but I'm going to risk it all again. I can win more. Oh, I just won all this money? Wow, I could use that money, but what if I double it? Right? That what if and wanting more is a very, very, very sharp double-edged sword. So what am I trying to say? Because it feels like now it's another podcast topic, but I'm going to end it now. What I'm trying to say is, while I agree you should be pursuing things, you should be going for what you want in life, you should be setting a goal and trying to achieve it. I've been pushing you guys and girls for goal planning for a freaking year now, right? Well, I can't be the guy that tells you not to achieve things. I'm telling you to achieve them. But also, what I would suggest to you for a certain level of sanity is to also be happy with the simple things. Let's say you achieve a certain level of success in your life. Let's say you're a husband or a wife and you've got kids and you've got a family and you got your own place and everybody's healthy and happy and you're able to pay bills, and especially during this crazy time of recession, you're in a good place in life, right? You've got your health, which is huge. Huge. If you have all of those things, realize that you are in an incredibly high level of what's considered successful in the scope of the world. Right now, if you've got all those things, and let's say you're in a first world country like America, like the US, right? And you've got all those things, you are considered wealthy beyond means for a lot of people within the world. Incredibly wealthy. There's some people that don't have any of those things, let alone all of those things. So take a second to be thankful for what you have. Take a second to appreciate the things you have, but also realize that while you should be achieving and reaching for the next thing, working for the next thing, you should also try to live a certain level of simplicity. And what I mean by that, because society and people and pressures and family and whomever tells you that you should be this or that in the world, people often don't feel like they can be happy until they've reached that goal. Well, that goal is an ever continuing race. So you will never really essentially reach it, right? How many guys and girls do you know that are like, oh, I just want to get lean, and they get lean, and they're like, well, now I want to get like really big and strong and more muscular, and then they do that, and they're like, well, now I want this and that, and then they do that, and now I want this. It's a never-ending race. And so what I'm trying to say is, people find a tremendous amount of satisfaction and sheer happiness by being, first and foremost, thankful for what they have, but also living a very simple life. And by that, I usually define it as like enjoying the little things. Enjoy and be thankful for the little things. I got up, I got breakfast, I was thankful for being able to have food on the table, thankful for being able to eat in peace, thankful for being able to kind of slowly enjoy my morning without necessarily having to be a person like 200 years ago where I would have had, or maybe more, where I had to like hunt for my own food, or I would have had to be in servitude for food. Do you get what I'm saying? The level of wealth and success that you have now is incredibly high, especially when you compare it to hundreds of years ago. Think about that. We say hundreds of years ago like it's a big time period. That's like 2-3 generations ago, if everybody lived around 100 years, right? So be thankful for what you have. That'll help you gain a little bit of peace. But also realize that it's the little things in life that you're going to remember. It's the little things that you're going to enjoy the most. Come here. It's the things like being able to have a quiet morning, being able to go out on your own, being able to do just the nice, peaceful, quiet things where you didn't have all this chaos. It's those little things that you sometimes, during those moments of chaos, during those moments of stress, during those moments of sheer just anxiety, it's during those moments that you would likely pay money, that money that you're working so hard for, to have. There are times where you're going to be stressed beyond belief and you're not going to know what to do and things are out of your power and you don't know what to do with your life. It is in those moments that you realize that if you could, you would pay a lot of money, if not all your money, to go back to a peaceful moment. A moment where all you had to do was just make breakfast, have coffee, and enjoy your morning. So remember that. Because although I will never tell you not to achieve your goals. I will say it's always good to reach for something. But never forget that it's always going to be the little things in life that you should be cherishing. And it's always going to be the things that you'll kind of want to go back to, especially when you're old and gray and you have, you're at the end of your life. Those are the things you're going to look back and say, I wish I could just go back to that moment. Anyways, this podcast went a little longer than I expected. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. No intro or outro this week. I hope these are helpful, right? I do this as a labor of love in a way. I do this in a way to help you maybe gain a little perspective. Perspective is interesting, and it gives you something to hopefully have thoughts on, but maybe even play mental gymnastics with. Because I think it's crucial. I don't think we get challenged enough in our day-to-day, and I think that we often can fill our day with entertainment all day. You could be at home all day and watch, hear, and be entertained all day. And I think playing the mental gymnastics game will often help you gain perspective. Because in a situation where you're watching a TV show, the moment that show is over, you're either going to watch something else to get away from the problems that you likely have, or you're going to find something else to fill that void so you don't have to deal with those thoughts. Play the mental gymnastics game. Question yourself. Think about yourself. Think about who you are. And I hope this podcast helps in that respect. And if you would be so kind, share it. Maybe you know somebody that would enjoy something like this. That's all I ask. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll talk next time.